Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode from the Side Hustler Society podcast. I'm your host, Elijah, and in this video, we're going to be talking about a much anticipated topic called sales. See, many people nowadays are what I would call spoiled because there's so many side hustles that you can use on these apps, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash. One of my friends was even telling me about an app called InstaWork, which I just heard about. We might even look at covering that in the future. But the point is, you can generate money without developing sales skills. And if these apps let you go for whatever reason, that income will go bye bye if you haven't developed the skill of sales. Even if you develop a trade or skill and you do that skill very proficiently, if you don't know how to sell, you are not going to make any income because in the world of entrepreneurship and freelancing, sales equals income. So that's why we're going to be talking about that today. And joining me doing this podcast as our guest will be Jon Loyhayem. He's been an entrepreneur since he was 19 and he started in a financial services firm. By 21, he became a manager. By 26, he was a senior manager, where the average senior manager was in their late 40s. Next, he expanded the company's operations with his team by opening several financial service offices in Arizona, Michigan, and Southern California. Finally, in December of 2020, he left the company he was at and opened his own financial service and insurance firm, Altus Insurance Solutions. Since then, Altus has doubled in size and volume for 2 years running. With that intro being done, we're going to both share perspectives and tactics that we've used in the sales field. Because me personally, I got my sales bones from network marketing, and that transferred into my freelance career back when I was editing videos and designing websites, which in turn helped me when I moved into entrepreneurship. Although I could make a pretty good claim to my first business, Asili Tiba, I learned a lot about sales there, but it wasn't really until I got involved in network marketing where they really start to take off. So with that being said, let's get started with the podcast.
Welcome to the Side Hustler Society podcast with your host, Elijah Bilel. This is where you can find out more about hustles that are best for you. And of course, make more money in the process. Elijah has been in the gig economy and freelance space for over 5 years and has done over 3,000 deliveries on Uber Eats. He's an Airbnb superhost, runs multiple YouTube channels, and is the author of the best-selling book, The Anatomy of Financial Success. It's his mission to empower people with the tools needed to be successful. Now, welcome your host, the king of side hustles, Elijah Bilel.
All right, Jon, we are live. How you doing today?
Another day in paradise, Elijah. How are you?
I'm doing all right. As we talked about a little before the stream, it's kind of like dark and gloomy here in Texas. It might rain, but if the sun could just pop out for a brief moment, I'd appreciate it. But what you gonna do?
Well, it was raining. I had to cancel my surf session the past 2 days, so I was looking forward to that all week. But it's okay. Next week it's going to be even better.
Right. But I'm really excited about this show because as everyone knows, this is the Side Hustler Society podcast, and a part of the reason I started this podcast is to be an alternative to like the gig economy stuff. It's very powerful that you can go out there, do a few rides on rideshare or food delivery or even like grocery shopping. But a lot of people, they kind of mistake it's a side hustle, but you can be kicked off those platforms pretty easily if you just make a wrong turn, unfortunately. So until you really develop a trade or skill and have something to bring to the marketplace, I'd say your income is more or less at risk. But let's say you get that trader skill, you become a plumber, graphic designer, video editor, whatever. This is where the harsh truth of if you don't have sales skills, you're not going to be making that much money. And this is where these apps have kind of spoiled the marketplace. You can just kind of start making money without the sales skills and the side hustle. But once you actually get a trader skill, if you don't have any sales skills, it's not really going to serve you all that much. So I'm really excited about doing this show on sales.
All right, I'm excited too. One thing I do want to point out, I never thought of it, but you're completely right. I have a lot of friends who are on Fiverr, or they're doing things that way. and their income's pretty good, but 5 or 10 years, if that app shuts down, they're done. They might have to switch to Upwork or whatever else, but completely right. I never thought of it that way.
Oh yeah. In fact, back in my freelance day, well, I shouldn't say back in. I still do take on freelance clients from time to time. But the skill that I bring to the marketplace is video editing, and I never used Fiverr or Upwork because I read their terms of service. I did not agree with the fact that if you take that client off the platform and they find out, they will just kick you off, even though they're just a platform. They're not. You're the talent, and the customer is the customer. You try and do something direct. That way they don't have to pay this big service fee to Fiverr or whatever, and neither do you. Oh, they'll give you the boot for that. So I just had the opinion of, I'm just not going to use them at all. I went and got my clients off the streets. I went to the Business Chamber of Commerce, gave my 60-second pitch at the meetings, and just met my clients on a meetup. Not meetup, but I would go to meetups, meet my clients like that. And to some degree, even just networking on Facebook. So, yeah, I'm really excited to hop into it. But
all right, cool.
But some people might be wondering exactly like what's your history with sales. So how did you get started in sales?
Wow, I've been in sales for a long time, but particularly financial services and insurance. Like most people who start off in insurance or life insurance specifically, I joined the company when I was 19. My buddy recommended that I get started. I got started. The only thing I remember from the interview was 2 to 4 hours worth of work, you can make $1,500. All right. This is a 19-year-old kid, a pre-law major in school, poli-sci pre-law emphasis at Cal State Northridge, and I'm teaching karate on the side, so I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. Sounds too good to be true. All right, then I understand licensing and all these different things, and I'm like, okay, so this is legit. Cool, let's go do it. No one told me that you have to be able to sell it, right? And I don't know if you know this, but life insurance sales is one of the hardest things to do. Who wants to talk? Think about it. Do you wake up in the morning thinking, you know what? I might die, right? So let me get some insurance because, I might pass away. No one thinks like that, and no one wants to think like that, right?
Right.
So I started at 19. At 21, 21 or 22, I became a sales manager, meaning I managed roughly 10, 15 agents, right? Most of which were older than me. By 25, the company I was in, I was a senior manager, and I was being sent across the country to open up different branches for the company, right? And train the sales force in those branches, mainly Michigan and Arizona, and I'm from California, right? So it was pretty cool. And then during COVID, I realized it was the best time. My vision and what the company's vision was, it's a whole long other story. But at one point, I thought I'd eventually be the CEO of that company. But my vision and what the company's vision was just didn't align anymore, right? And COVID was just the perfect opportunity for me to go and say, you know what, let's go. The world's changing. Let me open up my own shop. Luckily, all the agents that I had that were loyal to me, that I built over the last 9 years there, said, hey, if you're leaving, we're coming too. All right. So that was pretty cool. So I've been training people to do sales in financial services for, I want to say, almost 11 years now.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
And especially I like the fact that you were kind of like self-aware enough to see that your vision didn't align with your company's vision, and you went on the left. I know a lot of people would just stay in that position and just kind of be bitter and just complain about stuff. But you recognized it for what it was and decided to go out and start your own.
It's a lot worse, actually. I had shares for when the company would sell, right? Right now, actually, 2 years later, the company's selling. They're in the process. I think the deal is closing like this month or next month or something. All right. I saw the pic. I have friends that are still there. So I walked it. It wasn't like, hey, I just walked away. I walked away from, what I built for like 10 years, and as far as that aspect. But it was just, where the company wants to go. I talked to the people at the top, and and it was just like, mate, that's not what I want, right? And a lot of it is just I want more for myself. I want more for myself, and I want more for my family, right? And we just don't see eye to eye in a couple things, and that was fine. Right? I still have a really good relationship with the people there.
Right,
Right?
right.
I think
Yeah.
the VP, the vice president there, of a head of admin, was messaging me on Instagram like last week, or she was liking my posts, or my stories, and I was saying, I hope you're doing well. Cool.
Well, it's always nice to stay on good terms. I know some people they create a quit talk. I mean, they literally like you just go on TikTok, you see like all these videos of people like quitting their job in the most epic and ridiculous way possible.
Mm-hmm.
And swinging back to the theme of this podcast, which is sales, they do so without the sales skills and sometimes without the trade, and then they end up having to go crawling back, which is
I don't know if you could do that, right?
yeah. Actually, there's a teachable lesson in this. Like for everyone listening, a lot of people have the dream of leaving their 9 to 5. And when you finally do, just leave on good terms. Because if you did have to theoretically go back, which to be honest, if you're listening to this podcast, you won't have to. But let's say if you did, you're not crawling back. You come back on friendly terms, and
Mhm.
plus it's just straight up professional.
Yeah. Well, not only that, if you're going to stay in the same business that they're doing, like I'm in insurance and they're in insurance, other people left on bad terms, right? Now, do you think the company, like, it was good about it? No, because what we do is super competitive when it comes to clients and agents, right? On an agency level. So if someone leaves on bad terms, they went and ruined that person's reputation, right? Regardless of whether that person was a good person or not, right? It's just human nature, right? You're fighting. Let's say we're all in, for us in Los Angeles, there's only so many people, right? You're
Right.
eventually going to run into someone. Versus when you leave on good terms, I have nothing bad to say about that guy, right? Right?
Nicely put. Nicely put.
So there's that. That's another thing that you think of that I always thought of too, right?
Hmm. Success in life is measured by the quality of your relationships. Audience, let that sink in. I think it speaks for itself. So, with that being said, when it comes to sales, what's the most important thing in sales, in your opinion?
Okay, so in my opinion, I would say I would put sales equals success, first of all. So and here's why. If you're married, you had to sell someone on marrying you, right? Every day if you're, I don't know, if I'm not married, I don't have kids yet, but from what I can see around my friends and cousins and family members who do have kids, they have to sell their kids on what to do a lot of the times, right? And they're going to say, no, they just tell their kid what to do. I'm like, no, man, your kid's screaming. He doesn't want to put the jacket on. You're, you have to sell your kid on putting the jacket on, right? You have to sell your wife on why you don't want to go watch like some romance movie, and you want to go watch like a Marvels or Avengers movie, right? Or something like that. Or maybe sell her on where you want to go eat. So we're constantly selling nonstop. We just don't know it, right? Or on the other side, we're being sold, right?
Mhm.
So the two things though that I would say that make the most successful salespeople, the first one, and they kind of tie into each other. The first one's not giving up, right? So many people who have so much good potential in life and in sales, they just give up too early, right? The
Mhm.
second one is, I would say, is improving yourself.
So self improvement.
Self improvement is a huge, huge, huge one, and I could take it in. We could just spend an entire podcast on just talking about this topic. And I don't, but the biggest issue that I see in sales, and this is when I'm training my own field, my own agents. I always tell them the biggest issue that I see in sales is that people don't take enough time to develop their skills, right?
Mhm.
And when I say sales skills, is like I know people who can sell cars, but they won't be able to sell what I sell, right? I know people who can sell insurance, but they won't be able to sell a car or real estate. Not because of the passion, right? You do need to be passionate about what you're talking about, but because of the fact that they just don't have the sales skills that transfer over to industry.
Right. So the fundamental sales skills.
Exactly. Right. So, and nowadays in 2022, it's so easy to develop. When I started, I was reading books, right? I read The Art of Selling by Tom Hopkins, and I was listening to Brian Tracy audios. I had to go find them. I didn't pay for them. Remember when we had LimeWire? I was risking my computer, right?
Back when that was the thing.
Back
I
when
remember
that was the thing, or
While
whatever.
people were downloading music, you were downloading audiobooks.
I was downloading Brian Tracy, right? Brian, if you ever watch this, sorry, I'll write you a check. I doubt it. He's sold. I don't even think he knows like what LimeWire was. But all kidding aside, that's what I was doing. But there in 2022, all you need to do is go on YouTube, right? If it's free, right? Back then, it was like hidden. You had to know where to look for it, right?
Right.
So I was risking my computer getting viruses to get it, right? And I was like with my friends, when we were in college, I was like, he's like, hey, so did you find this audio? Yeah, I got this one. Oh, by the way, I got this one. And then eventually, my friend was in real estate. We had an entire, the three of us, between me, Brian, another Brian, not Brian Tracy, between me, Adam, and Brian, we had a huge Dropbox file with a lot of audios by different sales audios, right? And we'd be listening to them there. We'd be downloading them into CDs and putting them into our cars. Right. Mm-hmm. This is before Bluetooth connecting to your phone, right? So back then you could listen to now you could just we're like, why would you download it on? Why would you bring it onto a CD if we have any of those Gen Z kids on there? They're like, what are you talking about, old man? Right. Versus then the people a little bit older than us are like, oh, back in my day, I had to put it on a cassette. You had to rewind it with a pencil. I remember those days. I just never had to do it because I wasn't old enough. But yeah. So those are the two things: is not giving up and working on self-improvement. Everything else, if you can just do those two, if you make a commitment not to give up and make a commitment to improving yourself, right? And they go hand in hand. You can't do one without the other. If you just keep trying, but you don't get better, you really give it up, right? If you're constantly getting better, you're not going to give up because you keep seeing the progress, right? It's like when you're playing a video game and every time you get to one stage further, you're like, okay, cool, I got to one stage further. Okay, cool, I got to one stage further. Okay, I got to one stage further. Everything else will come in once you do those two. All right.
Right. And for the people on YouTube, he's talking about CDs like this Sales Dog by Blair Singer. Some people are too young to remember what a CD looks like, but it looks like this, okay? And we have to use to insert them into the CD cartridge in our cars or CD player, and that's how we had to listen to these things. I say that to say that y'all are spoiled nowadays, so please don't be complaining about the technology we have. It's awesome, and it's on YouTube nowadays.
It's on all the stuff that I risk viruses on my computers on YouTube for free now, right? And there's even better stuff because technology is adapted, right? I tell this to all my agents. Back in the day when I started, I was driving all over LA, right, to go see appointments, right? Now, dude, Elijah, you're in Texas. I'm in Santa Monica. We're having a conversation, right? If we wanted to do something like this 7 years ago, 10 years ago, I'd have to fly out there or you'd have to fly out here.
Valid point. Yeah. I still remember back in the day when it was always evaluating, you got a lead, and this lead is a big fish. It's kind of but they stay 20 or 30 miles away. Oh man, they're a big fish, but I don't want to drive that far. You convince yourself to go out there. It's like, all right, now I have to make this sale to justify me driving out there. I'm not gonna take no for an answer.
I know exactly what you mean. Right.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know. I have a couple of those. Right. Funny thing is they weren't big. For a couple of mine weren't big fish either. They were like pretty small fish. I was just doing it to do it because I was one of those people. I think for the management promotions in the company I was in, it was you had to hit a certain level of production, and you had to have a certain amount of. You have to have proven that you could have trained a certain amount of people.
Right.
So I think the average amount of cases for that level was like 20 in a rolling month or three and like 3 months. I think my number was 70. Like I had so many small little cases because I was just like, you know what, F it, we're gonna do it no matter what. So
I
I was one of
respected
those
that
people
too.
who would have driven there for the case that's not that big.
I
Um,
respect that attitude. That attitude takes you far in life.
yep.
So speaking of, this is actually a good tie into this question, but how do you find like your target market when it comes to sales?
It's a hard one, and we're gonna say it's gonna be different per industry, right? One thing I would say is you're right. You don't want to spread yourself too thin, right? You want to target. You want to go into a niche, because that's where the world is going nowadays with marketing, with sales, and everything.
The
Uh,
riches are in the niches.
Riches are in the niches for sure, but I would say you try a couple different things, right? Find what works, right? And I'm going to tie this into, like, I can talk about how I built my business originally when I was younger. We're going to jump into referrals because I'm sure you're going to ask that later on. So my biggest thing was I found someone, right? And I would work with them and I would give them such good service. And then, obviously I got the business. But my next question was, hey, Elijah, who are three people that you know that could really use the service that I talked about? Right? Do you know anyone else? And I'd follow up with them, right? Um, and that's how I would do it, right? So I automatically would open up niches without even doing it because originally I started doing this with one of my grappling instructor in karate, right? The guy who taught me how to grapple. You know, he owned a car sales lot, right?
Uh-huh.
Which I don't know why I decided to try to sell life insurance to car salespeople. It was not a good idea. Right? They are not the easiest people to close, right? But I did. But I got him. I sold his policy. Eventually, he referred me to 3, 4 of his managers, and his managers. It literally went down through the whole chain. So eventually, I was bringing lunch there once a week, and I was writing policies on the entire office, right? And then he referred me to another car salesperson, right? Because I already got how they are. So I started specifically, like I was selling life insurance to people at car sales companies, right? Or car salesmen. That's the word. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of how I develop niches. How would you find yours? Well, if I'm training someone and they say hey, I want my niche to be policy specifically for corporations that they want to have like this big buy sell type of agreement, or business owners, then I'd say a couple things. First, uh, get educated on what that niche needs, right? Or niche needs. You really, really need to know what they need, what solutions you can provide them, right? And those two are the ones. And really not what you think that they need, what they actually need. You need to go talk to a couple. If you're looking to specialize with business owners, you need to go to talk to business owners and say, hey, what are the biggest problems you have, right? And let's say you're in editing, you're a digital editor, and they're like, okay, the biggest problems. I'm making this all up. I have no idea what they would say, but I could say maybe it's my business is the biggest problem I have is I don't know when the footage is going to come. Sometimes they usually tell me it'll be ready in 2 days. It's ready in a week, right? And they give me something else. I don't even know why I need it. They don't give me a guide of where to post it. I just get a video from him, and it's great. And then and then whatever, right? Or why do I need a video, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you would find their problems, And then specifically, they all have the same 5 problems, but you, after talking to 5 of them or 10 of them, you know exactly what almost every single person in that niche is going to have an issue with. You find a way for your product or your solution to solve that. Right? Once you do that, boom, then you follow up with the referrals. Right?
Nice.
Right.
And this is
Oh, by the way, the one thing I missed there is come up with an offer that if you don't solve their problem, it doesn't cost them anything. So if their problem was, hey, I don't get my videos edited within the amount of time, it's like, hey, look, we'll have this to you in 3 days, or it's free.
Yeah, that's one of the ways of influencing people is to offer something for free in sales.
Yep. So it will solve their problem, and if it doesn't solve, if they don't have their problem solved, it's at no cost to them. They automatically will want that, right? So yeah.
That's a good kind of tying back into this technology and the advantages we have nowadays. It used to be you would have to put on your Sherlock Holmes hat and enter detective mode and actually go talk to people in this industry, find out what problems they're having. Because basically, what he just broke down is going to be their rebuttals to why they're not going to be interested. You find that out ahead of time, and then when you do perfect your presentation and then get into the art of selling, you can put this in your presentation so you actually don't have as many objections, or at the very least you're prepared for them. Or you can go do trial and error and lose leads by finding out, like when they ask this question, well, I have no idea. Yeah. But nowadays, you can still do one of those 2 methods, but just hop on Reddit or hop on any of these forums that are full of people in this community, and they put their complaints in full display for you to see. Mm-hmm. So, you type in, well, let's go with the video editing example. You go on Reddit and find a community of people who are looking for video editors, and their complaints like, oh, I hate the fact that my video editor isn't communicating with me. Like they don't say when it's going to be, the project's going to be finished, how much B-roll they're going to be using, like how do I solve this problem? You'll find that on Reddit, and then when you go and approach these clients, you can make it part of your package. Like, here's the terms of communications. And if you have any requirements as far as how you want things done, we can put together a SOP for me to follow. That way, we both have expectations on what you're going to get. You're solving the problem. But the beauty is these online forums nowadays are available for you to just grab that information versus before you had to enter detective mode and go talk to people and stuff. I'm not saying you shouldn't still do that, but you can start with the online forums if you wanted to.
Yeah. One of the really big ones that I always saw as prefacing it with that is like, hey, Elijah, most business owners tell me that they struggle with this, this, and this. Is that true for you? Right? And if it is true for them, you automatically said, they're like, yes, it is. Or if it's not true, then we're like, we don't actually have that problem. But, well, what problems do you have, Elijah? Oh, I have this problem. Okay, cool. So then you could think of something to come up with it too. Right? You're a little bit flexible, right? Bruce Lee said, "Move like water."
I like that saying. We kind of already tied into this question, but I guess we might as well go ahead and roll with it. But what advice would you give to the audience when it comes to handling like rebuttals and objections when they're selling?
Okay. So I can say this for 2 things. If you're in sales and you're salary based, rebuttals hurt a lot less, right? Versus if you're purely commission, right? If you're purely commission, those rebuttals hurt because that means the rejection, right? It means that you're looking at it as, oh my God, I'm not going to eat, right? I'm not going to get paid. So couple things. First, always take yourself out of it, right? It's hard, but as best as you can, put yourself out. If you look at it as, hey, I'm here to serve the client, right? So depending on what the rebuttal is, you just need to find a solution. They're just saying, hey, this is what I have a problem with, right? So you just need to give them a solution to that problem. So what if their rebuttal is, hey, I don't think it's going to work, right? Whatever you're saying, I don't think this is going to be, this, I guess let's continue with the video editing. I just don't think that me having this video and marketing it is going to work. Well, I would say, well, why do you think? My response to that would be, well, why? Tell me why, right? Or how do you mean? That's Brian Tracy. How do you mean, right? And they would say, well, I've never tried anything like this, and um, I don't know what else. I don't. My friend tried it. Like, okay, so when you just, as long as you dig into what the real problem is that you'll get it out. You'll get it out, because what they're saying most of the time doesn't actually have. It's not actually what they mean, right? So there's two reasons that people like have rebuttals. The first one is what they tell you, and the second one is what the real thing is, right? So first thing is find what the real issue is, right? And it could be like, hey, I just don't think that this is going to work, right? Or it could be as, hey, I just don't think I have the money. If they're saying, hey, I don't have the money, it just means you need to bring the value of your product up, right? That could be in any different way, right? Or you need to relate them to, hey, you're not spending money, you're investing money, right? And this is what you get. For insurance, it's a little bit easier because we have illustrations that show, hey, you put this much in, you're going to have this much coming out. We have third party things backing us up. But for a lot of other people, like if you're a plumber, your sales pitch is slightly different. You always just have to bring the value of, hey, chances are, if you use me, I'm not going to be the one. You're not going to have to come back here. I'm not going to have to come back here again because I'm going to do such a good job. You're paying for my service, right? Or something like that. And you always just have to find what the real rebuttal is and address it. Next thing I would say is not taking the rejection personally or the rebuttal personally, which I've seen so many people do. And it's kind of funny. If you ever go out to eat, right? The server comes over. Like last night, I was at a restaurant. The server came over and said, "Hey, do you want to refill on your Coke Zero?" And I said no. Or when they came and asked for the dessert menu, and I'm like, "Nah, I need to lay off," right? Um, I said no. The server take it personally. No,
Obviously not.
I just didn't want dessert.
Yeah.
Right? If that person's not, if that person's just not hungry for whatever reason, that could then just for whatever you're saying, your product, they don't see your product as something that could solve their issue, then let them be. They're not your prospect, they're a suspect, right? You want to sell to people who want to be sold. You want people who are your prospects. So those couple of things are the things that I would say to help. First, don't take it personally, right? Which is really the last thing I ended on. Don't take it personally. Make sure they're a prospect, not a suspect, right? And find out what the real rebuttal is, because what the chances are, what they're telling you, it's not the rebuttal. Once you find out the real rebuttal, you'll be able to address the situation, right? And you should know what the real rebuttals are, because in your business, if you're a professional, right, and you studied and you did exactly what we talked about, where you did some research and you find out what the problems are, you can always preface it too. Elijah, the two reasons why people tell me that they don't want to proceed with my services are A and B, right? They don't think that what I'm going to provide is enough value for the money that they're spending, or that they just don't understand it. Which one is it with you? Okay, so it's a lot of money. Okay, so you don't see the value, right? So let's go over the value again, all right? Or let's touch up where that issue is there.
Right. And a lot of times, if it is a deficiency in how they're seeing the value, you can address that by going back to either the time it's going to save them or the effort it's going to save them. So rolling with the video editing example, let's say they say it's too expensive, which means that the value hasn't been orchestrated in the right way in their mind. Let's say if they're a YouTuber, you could ask them about how long does it take for you to make a video, and how much money does that video tend to produce. how many videos could you spit out if all you had to do was focus on the performance of the video, your on-screen presence, all that stuff, and just outsource the editing? How many more videos could you spit out per week or even per month even? Get them thinking about that and it starts to make more sense. Or if that person is more of a business person, maybe not a YouTuber, you could ask them how much do they charge for a consultation or coaching, and let's just say they charge like 250 per hour or something. You ask them how long are they spending editing their own videos. And when they start doing the math, that's X amount of consultations you could be doing and making money. So does the value, you're actually losing money by doing the editing yourself, because that's money you could be doing coaching calls or consultation sessions and making more money.
100%.
Yeah, and as far as like the rebuttals and stuff, like one thing I've noticed, that this is assuming that they're a prospect, not a suspect. If they're a suspect, that's something different. I like that terminology you use. But for a prospect, if it does come down to them saying no, oftentimes it just comes down to the timing. It literally often has nothing to do with you. Assuming you have perfected your sales skills, but assuming that's been done, it's just the timing. Like if you approach them a week later, it might have worked, or a week before, it might have worked. It's just the timing. You gotta make peace with that sometimes.
Yeah. It's actually funny you said that. Last week we were bringing an agent on board, and we were following up with this agent, and that's one thing that we should discuss is follow up. He, I don't know. Well, no, there are two agents. One we were following up with for a while. The second one, to leave the firm that he was at and come to ours. The second one, it was a process of he's like, look, if you asked me a week ago, I would have said I'm too busy, and if you asked me a week later, I would have told you, hey, I'm not now, right? So it was just the timing of when we got to him, right? And that's the other thing that we always recommend is follow up, which is golden, right? The fortune is in the follow up. Most people
I was
say,
about to say that you beat me to it.
yeah. Well, most people say no 4 times and they say yes on the fifth one. Statistically speaking, if you look at the sales process, is it takes 4 no's to get to one yes, right? With one person. So you just have to keep, again, it goes back to never giving up and keep going and going and going. And nowadays it's so much easier. When I started, I had a little prospect book that I used to sit there and write notes on the person, like, okay, he's married, he has 2 kids. His kids' names are George and Fred. So when I call him, I'm like, hey, Elijah, how's George? How's Fred doing? Right? How's your wife? I know you guys just went on your anniversary to India, or I'm just making things up, but that's literally what I have to do. Nowadays, I think we have CRMs that are free, right? You don't even have to have a membership. You don't even have to pay anything, and they give you a free CRM that'll email your clients, and you can write all the notes on you want, and you have access to it on your phone, right? Technology has made it so much easier.
I find it funny. We keep coming back to like how technology is streamlining a lot of things for people. This is actually a good tie-in to this question, but like keeping in touch with clients, like potential clients, is important when it comes to keeping a steady stream of warm leads. Do you have any advice you want to give to people on how to do this?
All right. So again, we just talked about the CRM, right? Having a client relationship manager. Again, they're free nowadays. You can have them, or if you want to do it old school, have a notebook, a pen and paper, and just have a page for each prospect. What I would say though is, for me, what's worked is actually getting to know them, right? This goes back to personal relationship. People want to do business with people they like and know, right? If you're the guy, or like, let's just put it this way, you're on Instagram. If there's someone who's always just posting about buy my product, buy my product, buy my product, buy my product, what do? Mute or unfollow, right? If you know them and you don't want to unfollow them, you just mute them. So that way, if they check their followers, you're still there. Right? let's be real. But if you don't, you're just like, dude, I don't want to see you selling it, right? It's the same thing in real life. If you look at it, if people don't want to have relationships with the people who they don't know, right? And that's where, or that are always just trying to sell them something. Some people are like, hey, look, let's just go straight to the chase. This is what I want. This is what I need. You got the service. Let's go. Right. But even then, if you do a little bit of more time, just do a little bit of work and just get to know them a bit. All right. Ask them how they are. Ask them how their friends and family are. Have notes on who they are when you're talking to them. But that'll go a long way. All right. And then and then again, it's been so easy. I think this month or on not this month, Thanksgiving, I sat there and sent over 450 text messages. All right, manually. But I had and these are all my past clients, right? Mm-hmm. And it was something simple as, hi, Elijah, this is Jon Loyhayem. I just wanted to take a minute and let you know how thankful I am for you trusting your family's financial future with me. All right. In the past, I hope you're having a great Thanksgiving. All right. If I had a little bit more relationship with them and it wasn't awkward, I would say, I've talked to them in the last couple of months. I'd say I'd add a little bit more of a personal touch. But right. Even people who I haven't I had clients that since I transitioned from the old company to the new company, haven't spoken to them in like 5 years. And now, because of just what the rules of the company are, I had access to them and I could talk to them again, right? Without causing any issues.
Right.
So I was able to do that, just something like that. And he's like, I found out that one of my clients that lived in Santa Cruz moved to Texas, and he's actually a video editor for like movies, which is funny because we're talking about digital editing, right? So getting to know the person a little bit, having notes on who they are, because I know you're talking to 100 people, but you should at least have a little notepad or a little something, or in your CRM, take notes. Okay, this is who the person is, what it is. If you know what their birthday is, great. You could shoot them a happy birthday text here and there. You could put it on your calendar to do. But those little personal relationships add up a long time. If you do that with one person, might not happen. But you tell them, if you're doing that with 100 people, chances are you brought your sales numbers up a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually one thing that I would also talk about. Sales is like, sales is a game of inches, right? If you add every skill you add on isn't going to improve on a small scale if you do with one client or two clients. But over the course of 100 clients, okay, your follow-up's coming up, you're doing this, you're developing your sales skills, you're practicing handling rejections, you're practicing your presentation, right? When you look at the grand scale, when you look at the overall scale, your chances are you're gonna be a lot better and better, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the game of inches. Is every little thing that you do just brings you up 1%, right? It brings up a 1% closing chance. So there's that too.
Yeah, and what you mentioned, this is where referrals start to happen on their own when you do these little things, because you're changing how people feel, and obviously people need whatever you're selling, your services, but if you make them feel good, this is when they'll start to just, without you even asking, they'll start to refer you.
Yeah, and also you have to stay in front of them, right? Think about it. These people have the news, they have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Netflix. Constantly people think are in their face and trying to get their attention, right? All of these sources have advertising. All of these things have things of ways to grab their attention. You really think they're sitting there like, okay, who do I know that I could send Elijah today for his video editing services? They're not going to think about you in 5 minutes because someone else is going to grab their attention. So you do these little things will help you get in front of them, and they'll help you keep them in the front of your mind, right?
Yeah.
And that's also one of the reasons why I've been successful at getting referrals, is because I do all these little things, right? That said, I'm personally not perfect. I do mess up all the time. And if you do mess up, don't beat yourself up. Just do it next time. All right. That's another thing that that's another big part, is no one's perfect all the time. No one stays on their diet 100% of the time. No one, I shouldn't say no one, but almost no one stays on their diet 100% of the time. Almost no one is perfect every day. And there might be days that you forget to message people happy birthday or whatever it is. Just start doing it the next day, or just start today. All right. Because again, the law of averages, if you just keep doing it over a period of time, you'll get the results, right?
Mhm. Right, right. And there's a chance you may have already said it already. Let me know if you have. But like, what's the biggest piece of advice that you want to give the audience, like when it comes to sales? And we've covered a lot of ground, so you may have already given that advice.
Uh, it would go back to the beginning on how we started.
Hmm.
Constantly try to improve, constantly try to get better, right? The person who thinks they're done is usually the person who loses, right? Even till this day, I'm still reading books. I'm actually reading more. I read more books in 2022 than I've read in any other year. Right?
Hmm.
I'm still listening to audios and trainings and videos, and I'm trying to improve. I'm still looking at how to make our presentation slightly more better, right? Maybe add another tie down, tweaking things to see if it'll work better, and just working with our when we're working with our agents. So I think that would be the biggest thing. If you're constantly trying to get better and you're constantly trying to, like, I would say, level up,
Hmm.
you're always going to win because you're every day it's just a little bit more, it's a little bit better, it's a little bit better. um, you know a lot of you need to take massive action a lot of times, but if you improve 1% a day over the course of a year, it's 365%.
Oh,
and
I like that. I like that.
and we're going into a new year. I took that from James Clear, Power of Habit. Great book. uh, One of the books I read today, this year.
Mhm.
But yeah, we're going into 2023. I forgot what year it is. We're going into 2023 in a couple of weeks. And that's something for you to remember. 1% every hour, 1% every day, it's going to be 365%. And even if you mess up half the time, still 180% better. Right?
Nice, nice. And you touched on something that Robert Kiyosaki mentioned in his book Before You Quit Your Job. But he
Mhm.
talked about the difference between an employee and an entrepreneur. And one thing about the employee mindset is there's a graduation date in mind where you
Mhm.
get your degree, then you start making money, and then maybe you decide to get higher education and maybe make more money. But there's always a graduation date in your head. But when you're an entrepreneur, you need to be comfortable with the fact that there is no graduation date. It's an
Mhm.
ongoing learning process, and your cup must always remain empty. That's what he said. Your cup should never be full. You should always be learning, and that's just part of the process of being an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
So that's something to take away, audience. Is realize that this is an ongoing journey of learning and kind of embrace that, because that's how you're really gonna take your skills in anything, but in this case, sales, to the next level.
100% agree. Yeah.
So, I would say we are getting close to the end of the podcast. We'll start wrapping up pretty soon. But one of my audience members, he knows that I was going to be talking to you today, and he really wanted me to ask this question. But with you being in insurance, he wants to know, like, what does it take to start like an insurance company?
An insurance agency. That's such an interesting question. It depends on where you want to go with it, right? And I actually just wrote a book on this. Maybe when it just got edited and it's going through. It's being illustrated right now. Whatever little pictures we need and the covers being made. I'll send it to you. We can put a link to the video, put a link to it. But it really depends on what you want, right? We have insurance agencies that are like one, which majority of insurance agencies are one man shows, right? They might have two or three agents. Let's be real. Insurance companies, because technically they're a company, they're a corporation or LLC. And then we have a bunch that are, we have a bunch that are huge, and then we have a bunch in the middle, right? And there are different breakpoints of where they all get stuck in. Personally, our goal is to go into M&A, right, which is mergers and acquisitions, and buy other agencies and eventually sell our company.
Mhm.
So, it depends on what you want. Do you just want to be an independent agent, and just want to work? You just want to do that, or depending on what you want, you're going to get a different answer. So, and the short answer is the first thing, if you have to decide, is whether you want to actually train and mentor agents. The second thing you have to decide is um, how big you want to go with it, right? And what's even bigger is, are you willing to do the work, right? Because each one, if you just want to do personal sales, you can go out there. You can easily in this industry, you can make $500,000 or $300,000 to $500,000 a year just in sales, right? No problem, right? There are people who even make seven figures in just in sales in this industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like real estate. However, if that's not if you want to, you could just hustle hard and you can easily do that. Or not easily, it's still a lot of work, but you can do that. Or versus opening the agency.
Or the path to doing it is simple, rather.
Huh?
Or the path to doing it that way is simple or simpler.
Yeah. You don't have to deal with people. You don't need an admin staff. You don't need operations. Maybe you need one assistant, right, to help you with to get the cases, to help cases go through. But it's like being a real estate agent, being a one-man real estate broker. It's just you. You're the only agent at your brokerage, or it's you and your wife, versus, which I see a lot of all the time, right? Versus trying to open up your own real estate company.
Right.
They're very different things. So, but I would say if you wanted to start, first thing, you need to be able to write business and you need to be able to produce and be really good at it. Because if you can't, then chances are you're going to go hungry. So that's the first thing you need to do. Your sales skills have to be up there. Your prospecting has to be up there too, right? Because no one's going to listen to you if you're not successful, right? So if you want to even go to the next part. But for me, it always starts with self-development, constantly trying to improve. Second, after that, and that would help everything. But obviously, if you want to open up an insurance agency, you want to you need a license, you need a bunch of other things, right? Depending on what state you're in, there are different qualifications. So you need that. Then you also want to look at how you're going to get clients. Are you going to go based off of word of mouth, friends and family? There are a lot of companies that do that. Our company actually has vendors that sell you appointments, so you can get online, you can get on Zoom with someone and just do that over the phone or over Zoom. So there are a couple different ways to go about it. But really, it would the first thing I would say is really develop your skills and really practice, right? That said, I'm going to do a little shameless promotion. If you are looking to get in the industry, get a hold of me. We are licensed in all 50 states. Well, we're licensed in New York, but we can't really onboard you in New York. But if you're looking to get in the industry, get a hold of me. My info is just below or wherever it's going to be.
It'll be in the description on YouTube and in the show notes in the podcast.
All right. Awesome.
Okay, cool. So I always ask my guests if they have any question they want to hit me with, John, before the show ends. So do you have a question you want to hit me with?
Me?
Yeah.
What made you want to what made you want to start a podcast on side hustles?
What made me want to start a podcast? I did partially answer this with the old gig economy stuff. As as you probably know, based on the intro, I have over 3,000 deliveries like with Uber Eats, and I've done Uber and Lyft. So I've been a part of the gig economy, but it was always a means to an end. And the game plan was always and I got involved with the gig economy because I wanted to build a YouTube channel. So that YouTube channel was the App Lifestyle. So the plan was to make money with this gig economy stuff, make content about it, and then pivot that information to personal finance, and then use that money from personal finance to acquire real estate. And that's basically what I did. But I really wanted people to come with me in terms of following a similar game plan. Like, hey, this gig economy stuff is supposed to be temporary. Use the freedom that you'll get since you can control your schedule, develop a trade or skill. And once you get that, you'll start making money that way because, these gig apps, you're expendable. Yeah. And a lot of people, maybe 10% of people took that advice. I just don't think that was a high enough percentage because I see people get deactivated from Uber and Lyft all the time for some dumb stuff. And since they don't have a trade or skill, they're just kind of left out to dry. Plus, I have done so many quote unquote side hustles throughout the years that I wanted to share the processes of how I've been successful and things that I haven't done. I wanted to bring that information to the marketplace and interview people so people can get some inspiration and details on how to make certain things work. So those combined kind of inspired me to start the Side Hustler Society podcast. I would say it's not a drawn out explanation, but I would say that's the most that's the main reason that caused me to start the podcast.
It's cool.
All
Okay.
right, John. So before we get out of here, where can people get more of you if they want to reach out? And also, feel free to plug your insurance company out too.
Okay. Right now, we're currently rebranding our insurance company. We are in the process actually of a trademark lawsuit, which
Oh.
is really funny. So the name of our company is Altus Insurance Solutions. Um, we didn't do anything wrong, but Altus was never anything we heard of, and we thought we were being unique, and apparently we weren't. So we're actually in the name of we're in the process of rebranding, but you can just get a hold of me through my regular email, Jon, my last name at gmail.com, Loyhay at gmail, or also you can go to jonloyhayem.com. That site's being built out right now. Okay.
Cool. So we'll go ahead and conclude this episode of the Side Hustler Society podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you can give us a thumbs up for that YouTube algorithm, very much appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. And if you're listening to us on the go podcast wise, if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts, that'd be very much appreciated. With that being said, everyone be safe and profitable. We'll catch you on the next show.
This episode may be over, but your hustling journey has just started. Visit SHS020 to access all links and resources mentioned in the show that will help you on your hustler's journey.